Think you know the Bible? Think again. Tune in as Rabbi Bentzi Epstein and Tom Levine reveal the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary in Breakneck Through the Bible by Torch Dallas. Each episode may cover just a few verses, but don't let that fool you. Get ready to learn the Bible at a breakneck pace.
I am excited, as always, to pick up our Breakneck Through the Bible. We are on page 39 of the Stone Homish, Parshas Noach, on chapter 8, verse 20.
Okay, right. And verse 20 we did a little bit last week, but we'll just start there because it's, at least in the English, it's a paragraph break.
Okay.
In the Hebrew, it's not its own new paragraph, but go ahead.
Then Noah built an altar to Hashem and took every clean animal and every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar.
Because after Noah's gotten out, he's told to go out. Noah and his sons, his wife and his sons' wives with him, even though they were told to go out, Noach and his wife, and Noach's sons and their wives.
And we did discuss that last episode.
Right. And that was that were not interested in procreating, right? Because they did not want, they were too shattered from what they saw. You can imagine.
Hashem smelt the pleasant aroma, and Hashem said in his heart, I will not continue to curse against the ground because of man, since the imagery of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again continue to smite every living being, as I have done.
So he says, I will not continue to curse the ground, to curse again the ground because of man. Right? Meaning God goes ahead and God says that, he smelled the pleasing aroma we talked about last week. And when you bring an offering, that it's that pleasing aroma to God. It's because the offering, by slaughtering the offering, you're saying, I'm going to subjugate my body and my earthly desires, my bodily desires, to the service of God. It's a down payment. It's not the end. Because now we need to do the follow-through, which is the actions afterwards. But we said it was a pleasing aroma, like when you walk in your house and your wife is frying onions, or your husband is frying onions, and it smells so delicious, you say, delicious, I can't wait. You begin salivating. And so when we bring an offering, and it's a pleasing aroma to God. And then God says, I will not continue to curse again the ground because of man, right? Since the imagery of man's heart is evil from his youth, which is very interesting. The word from his youth is actually spelled missing a letter. And could be read not only from his youth, but from when he begins misheninaer, when he begins to move.
You're saying even before he was born?
So when does a man get his mankind, a man and woman, when do they get their evil inclination?
At birth.
Where at birth?
So we learn that as the baby is being born, the angel taps them on their lip and they lose or they forget all of the Torah knowledge that they learnt while in the womb.
Correct. But let's just take a step back. When the baby's in the womb, he has an angel teaching it Torah.
Yes. So I'm going to go out on the limb here, Rabbi, and say we get our evil inclination at the point in time that we forget the Torah that we learned.
It's a good point.
Not the right one, but...
No. It's a very interesting point. Because here it says you get your evil inclination when the when the fetus begins to move. Right? I guess so when it begins its trip down the birth canal, that's when it begins to lose. That's when it gets its evil inclination. And it would make a lot of sense that could be at the time that it would forget his Torah. Right? Because it says the angel taps it on the lips. And I don't know if that's at the beginning of the birth canal, at the end of the birth canal, but I like the idea that you said. I thought it was a novel idea. I really like it. We'll have to confirm that that's true, but let's meanwhile put that in the
in the hopper.
In a hopper, that it's a good point that would make sense that you would get evil inclination when you lose your Torah, because what is the antidote to your evil inclination? Torah. So it would kill the evil inclination, and we need to have an evil inclination. Why must we have an evil inclination?
In order to appreciate the good inclination?
No.
I mean, to challenge us for growth?
What is the definition of a human being? We have free will.
Right.
The only way to have free will is to have an evil inclination telling us not to do something.
Good.
So we need an evil inclination. Then we need to beat it up and not listen to it. But we need an evil inclination, because we don't have an evil inclination. So then at that point in time, if we don't have an evil inclination, then we're just going to be out to lunch, toasted.
Are you implying that without the evil inclination, we couldn't have free will?
Correct. Because why would we not do what God wants us to do? If we don't have an evil inclination, then we can't. There's nothing pulling us to not listen to God.
Very interesting. And yet, it seems that our challenge through life, as you said a moment ago, is to eradicate the evil inclination, thereby eradicating our free will.
So I'll tell you something fascinating. I'll tell you an interesting Talmud. Talmud in the tractate Sukkah says as follows. It says, at the end of days, we're going to get introduced to our evil inclination. And some of them are going to look like the Hulk. Muscles behind the ear, just like, wow. And some of them are going to look like a thread.
Yeah.
Like a little white thread on the floor. And both the righteous are going to cry and the wicked are going to cry. So when you first read the Gemara, you first read the Talmud, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Two things that jump out at me is, one, the perception of the evil inclination is either incredibly strong or incredibly weak. But at the end, when we meet the evil inclination, we recognize perhaps how easy or hard it would be to have overcome it.
Okay. And who do you imagine has the evil inclination looking like a Hulk? The righteous or the wicked?
I would say the righteous.
Oh, I would say the wicked. And my first thought was it's the wicked, because that's why the wicked was wicked. He had such a strong evil inclination.
Okay, good.
Okay, that was my first shoot from the hip when I remember learning the Gemara. Like, I remember learning that. And then you realize that no, it's the other way around. Because the Talmud continues and says, and the righteous people cry, they say, how was I able to overcome such a strong foe? And the wicked person cries and says, how was I not able to overcome such a weak foe? And then when I thought about it, it makes absolute sense. Because as we become more righteous and we sort of beat up our evil inclination has to become stronger. Because if we become stronger and we had the same weak evil inclination we had before, no problem. It wouldn't be challenged. So it has to go work out. And the weak person, if he has the one that he had when he started, right, which was normal, of course he's going to lose because he became weaker and weaker. So as he becomes weaker, his evil inclination has to become smaller and smaller. Till when they die, the wicked person, it's a piece of string.
So it almost implies, and I'm not trying to, play games with words, but as a person becomes more and more righteous, their evil inclination becomes stronger and stronger to challenge them. But if they then fail at a task, and does their evil inclination become weaker?
Yes.
So
it's moving all the time.
Interesting.
And really, that's why evil inclination doesn't like us, because if we go to the study hall, if we go up to Torch to come study Torah, where is our evil inclination after he tried to stop us from going? While we're studying, and besides that he's trying to distract us from when we study, but the evil inclination has to go to the gym and has to start working out to become stronger. As opposed to when I go bar hopping, clubbing, my evil inclination is having a blast. He's sitting on his beach with his pina colada, on just watching the ocean, sipping his pina colada because he's gotta get fat again, because he's got to weaken, because we just weakened ourselves. And so that's what keeps on going on, this backwards and forwards and forwards and backwards, right? That our evil inclination, it starts off, when do we get it? We get it as soon as we begin heading down the pike, as soon as we begin to be born. That's when we go ahead and we get our evil inclination. Angel taps us on our lip, we forget all the Torah. That's why baby comes into this world crying, because he came from a world of clarity. He learned Torah, he knew everything. And that Talmud actually uses the expression that his soul could see from one side of the world to the other side of the world. He has clarity, he understands the entire world. And in one fell swoop, bam, he gets tapped on his lip, and he forgets everything. He gets everything, and he comes into a confused world.
So when we have a stillborn child, is that a child that had full Torah knowledge and it never left him or her?
Yeah. And the answer would be yes. Because the soul stayed in the world of souls.
Yeah, interesting.
Right? It stayed in the world of souls, so that it never loses that clarity. It never really even came down. So why did God let the fetus be produced?
Because there was part of its mission was its impact on the people still in this world.
Oh, good. And as well is that maybe the tikkun, maybe what the soul had to rectify could be rectified while it's still in the womb, and there was no need for it to come to this world. Right? Just like we talk about that there are souls could go ahead and have any length of time, right? We don't know how long anyone is here for, right? But they're here as long as they need to do their job. And once they fulfill their task, they no longer want to be here. And they go back to the other world. We don't like thinking about that because it makes us very mortal. And we begin to really understand that this world is a very temporary world.
So we're living in a world right now where mental health issues are front and center.
Correct. Rampant.
Yes. And so you have a person in this world who learns that the world to come is a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a moment of weakness, they commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Because in their mind, they're saying, I don't want the pain of this world, and so I want to move on to the world to come.
Right.
So how do we rectify, justify, because we know that's wrong.
Why is it wrong?
Well, it's not up to make that decision.
Okay, good. In other words, suicide is self-murder. Right? It's murder. Right? You're killing yourself. So just because it's yourself, you don't have the right to kill yourself. Because God decides when you're born and God decides when you'll go. We are not allowed to end our life early, period.
And the consequence of that?
So the consequence is complicated because we understand that most people that commit suicide are not in their right mind. And right, as we say, nobody in the right mind would kill themselves.
Well, let's explore that just for a second. And I know this is a bit of a deviation from Parshas Noah, but what about substance abuse, whether it be alcohol, food,
any of the A's, AA, NA, GA, OA, SA.
So we're not saying suicide as in somebody jumps off the building, but is it still suicide if through improper behavior they bring around their demise earlier?
Sure. I mean, again, it's not the classical definition of suicide, but are you allowed to do anything that harms yourself? And the answer is no. Now, again, right, there are healthy ways to deal with our challenges, and there are unhealthy ways. Right? Any addiction is unhealthy. And our job is to learn how to coping mechanisms, resilience. I'll go and stand on a soapbox here for a moment. My wife, teaches in a middle school, and she keeps on talking about that our job as parents is to teach resilience to our children, right? To make us resilient in what we do. Like, not to go ahead and to, something go my way and I fall apart, right? To throw a temper tantrum. And so teaching resilience to our children is a main job of a parent. And she says sometimes she speaks to the parents, and the parents themselves don't have resilience. So she understands why the children don't have resilience. So she has children that are not resilient and parents that aren't resilient. And then it becomes like double trouble. But we have to teach our children to be resilient and healthy ways to deal with disappointments. It's not okay when you lose a game of chess to shoot the person who won. It's not okay to shoot yourself if you lost, right? You have to learn how to become emotionally balanced and healthy, and to learn what's normal and what's not.
Okay.
Right? And I think that's what we're missing a lot in this world. You always hear, when I was young, I went to school uphill in the snow, both ways, right?
Barefoot,
yeah. Right, barefoot, right? And and we kind of like, oh God, there goes Uncle Harry again, just going ahead and telling us about his adventures, right? But it's resilience, and that's what we have to learn. We have to learn resilience. We have to learn to be able to handle life's ups and downs. And in fact, if we're really healthy, we can enjoy the ride. Even when it's not perfect, even when that team loses, that's okay. The other team won because we made them feel good. Right? Or the other team won, and that's okay. We could lose once in a while. That's normal. That's healthy. Right?
Good.
And that's really something that we really need to figure out. Right? So it's coping mechanisms, resilience, learning how to be healthy human beings. And the Torah gives us a very good way to look at that. Right? Because when we understand that it's all God all the time, so everything that happens to us comes from God. So I no longer have to blame the other person. I now have to just figure out what message is God trying to send me. And if I figure out what message God is trying to send me, then I could go ahead and I can become the best that I can be. Right? And that's really the real healthy way to look at it. That everything that happens is just coming from God. And it's God's way of helping me come close to Him. Right? And so I now need to figure out, well, how can I use this as an opportunity to come close to God? There's there's a beautiful meme, I guess somebody sent me, which I thought was really cool. And it was somebody who was in a pit.
In a pit?
In a pit. Okay? And people were throwing at him like clods of earth while he was in the pit. So the first picture was a person cowering, right? Going, oh, poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me. The second picture was the person taking the clods of earth that people were throwing at him and creating steps so that he could begin climbing out of the pit.
Good.
Right? And if you wanted to get him out of the pit, what would you'd throw him steps so he could build steps. So that's exactly what he was doing. So we could look at the clods of earth as somebody's trying to get me. We could look at the clods of earth as thank you for sending me the tools I need to get out. And if we think about life, that's really what happens in life. So, okay, we have our evil inclination. We get it from when we begin moving out of the womb. Fetus begins to be moving, right? The fetus, while it's inside the womb, it is only the angel teaching it all Torah, completely pure and holy. And when does the soul come into the fetus? There's two opinions in the Talmud, either at age 3 or day 40. Okay, those are two opinions. Certainly by day 40, right, that's when the fetus is.
And what was the other opinion?
Day 3.
Day 3.
Okay, so now we go ahead and you have the fetus. You have, now it begins to move. The evil inclination comes in, loses his Torah. When does a person get their good inclination?
When they become an adult?
Okay, at what age?
So would that be
35?
12? Yeah, no, 55. What are we talking about? 12 for women and 13 for boys?
Very good. Right? Because a girl becomes an adult at age 12. A boy becomes an adult at age 13. Why is there an age discrepancy?
Women are more holy.
More mature.
Okay.
Not a question of holy now. It's a question of maturity. Right? Women are more mature. So at age 12, she's already mature. A boy at age 13, it takes him an extra year.
And that coincides with bar and bat mitzvah?
That's why a bat mitzvah literally means the daughter of commandments. Bar mitzvah means the son of commandments. Because at that point, what it's saying is, at that point in time, a person becomes liable, becomes an adult, becomes accountable for their actions in this world, because at that point in time, they're expected to know better.
But I thought there was something about age 20.
So very interesting. So the Talmud says that in heaven, when God judges us, he, at age 12 and 13, he says, we're still babies. We might know right and wrong, which is why in this world we'll hold you accountable. You steal one apple, you're going to have to pay back 2 apples. Right? When you're 10, you steal an apple, you don't have to pay back 2 apples because you're a child. You're not capable of understanding. But then, once you turn 12 or 13, we say in this world you know between right and wrong, and you're accountable for what you do. But in heaven, when you're 12 and 13, you're still emotionally, what's the right word? What's a nice word to use? You're still emotionally
growing. Well, no, you're always emotionally growing.
Right, hopefully. Right, so at age 12 and 13, you're emotionally challenged. Okay? So God says, how am I going to judge you? Are the commandments to love God, to be in awe of God? Like how could God says, how can I expect you to come to such to be there? You're 12, you're 13 years old. So God says, when you're 20, we'll start dealing with you.
And is there a discussion of why 20? Why not 19? Why not 25? Is there a magic?
Is 20 a magic number? So it's actually funny. I'll give you an insight that I had that I thought was pretty proud of myself. It's a gift.
Listen up, audience. This is going to be a good one.
It's a gift from God. I call it an epiphany. Like when God gives you an insight that is beyond your capacity. So God says at 20, I can expect you to understand loving God, loving your neighbor, right? I mean, those commandments that where there's emotion, and most of the commandments really have an emotional component, or really mostly are emotional. So this is the kicker. When does God want you to get married? So the Talmud says, Ben Shmona Esrei L'chuppah. When you're 18, you're supposed to get married.
It's interesting.
Right. Now remember, in the olden days, right, you were born, live, and died by the time you were 35.
Right. But if it says get married by 18, I would have thought you're responsible not 20, but at 18.
18, right? And God says no. So God, what that means is, God says you're still responsible at 20 in heaven. I want you to get married. Be married for 2 years
leeway.
Not 2 years leeway. I'm going to give you 2 years of marriage. But then you probably have a child. And God says, then I'm willing to talk to you.
Okay.
Then I'm beginning to hold you accountable. But till you're married and you understand love and you understand disappointment and you understand, you don't emotionally develop until you're married and for a couple of years, then God says, I'm willing to talk to you. And that's the insight that I thought that was so deep. And that God says, 20. But get married at 18. Because only then, after you're married for a couple of years, we begin to be able to begin to understand. Because all our relationships in this world are really meant to help us mirror our relationship with God. Right? We're supposed to get married because we're supposed to, the greatest love that we choose in this world is a spouse. And God says, I want you to choose to love me. Which is why Shir Hashirim, the Song of Songs, it's a love song. Why is it written in a love song between a husband and wife?
That's the greatest.
That's the greatest love that you choose. It's not the greatest love. The greatest love is a parent to a child. But the greatest love that you choose is marriage. And God says, I want you to go ahead and I want you to choose to love me. So God says, choose to love a spouse. And after you choose to love a spouse, at that point in time, then you can begin to understand how to choose to love me. And then you have a child, because God says, you are my children. So when you finally understand how much you can love a child, you can finally begin to understand how much God loves us. But we have these relationships in this world to help us understand our relationship with God.
So somebody who has multiple children,
right?
Would you propose or argue that they love each child the same?
So the answer is, when you have a child, when you had your first child, remember when you had your first child?
Yeah.
Do you remember how much you loved that child?
Yes.
And you begin to understand when your parents told you this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you? Remember that?
Yeah.
Right, and we always told my dad, well, then don't smack us. So then they got smacked twice.
Yeah.
Right? Remember that? Remember those days? The good old days when spanking was, right, was still okay. And then, and notice I said spanking, not beating.
Oh, yeah, no.
Right, and so, and you could think it's not possible I could love anybody more than I love this child. And you wouldn't say it out loud, but you actually love the child more than you would love your spouse. And then you found out your wife was pregnant again. What did you think at that point in time? I don't have enough love for two?
No.
What did you think?
It wasn't a binary decision. It was, I'm going to love the child totally.
As my child.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not one or the other. But that expands your ability to love. and then we'd have a third and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth and a seventh and an eighth. What keeps on happening to your loveometer?
So I can't respond to that, but you can.
Right? What happens?
It grows.
It grows, and it expands your emotional bandwidth. Right? I don't look at one kid and say, "Oh, I love that kid," and I don't love the other kids. Of course, I love the other kids.
Good.
So that's what happens. Okay, so your good inclination comes in on a female at 12 and at a male at 13. That's when that's when your good inclination comes. So how could God give you an evil inclination and not give you a good inclination?
Because the learning how to interact with your evil inclination before that time is the responsibility of your parents.
Ah, very good. So your parents are your good inclination. And so your job becomes to be, right? Your job becomes to be that as a parent is that I am my child's good inclination until they get their own. When do they get their own?
12 and 13.
12 and 13. Right? And that's why we're taught that when a child sins, that the parents get their sin, not the child. The child's not culpable.
Up until
12 and 13. And then once they turn 12 or 13, then they become responsible for their own.
So when we sometimes look at a misbehaving teen at 13, and we look and say the parent did a poor job of teaching the good inclination. But at 13, it's no longer the parent's responsibility?
So that becomes an interesting question. Now the child has a good inclination and they have to make their choices. A parent is always a parent. And a parent's job is always to try to help their children. Now, depending on the relationship with their children, they might not be able to do the help
that the child needs.
That the child needs. Right? And sometimes they think they're helping and really they're hurting. And that happens a lot. Right? And it causes lots of traumas. And so we have to understand, it's interesting. When a child is 2, you can't reason with them. You just teach them the right thing. As they get older, our job becomes to not to force them to do the right thing, but to explain to them what the right thing is and encourage them to do it. And if we do that correctly, then our kids at least have a half a shot in heck to come out normal. But we need a lot of wisdom and a lot of help from heaven on how we go ahead and how we teach our child and hopefully inspire our child and give them the correct way to talk and the correct way to act. And if we're able to do that, then we could truly create a great person. But we need to do that. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay, so we get the good inclination at 12 or 13. Until then, the parents are supposed to be the good inclination. Okay, but now God says, I'm not going to continue to smite every living being as I've done before. And go ahead.
Continuously, verse 22, which is actually where we were starting. But that's continuously, all the days of the earth, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, shall not cease.
Oh. So God here says right, that from now on, there are going to be 6 seasons. Because remember, when the flood happened, the world was stuck at dusk the entire year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like Bein Hashmashos. There was no nighttime, daytime. For an entire year, the world just sort of stood at this place of dusk.
That's very hard on people.
Yeah.
I know
Well, there weren't that many people. But
Right, but I spent some time in like in areas in Finland in the wintertime, and it doesn't really get dark. It's just like dusk all the time.
right.
And I found it was difficult on me.
Interesting. I mean, your body clock
Yeah.
wasn't in. So here, God says we're going to continue these 6 seasons. And what's interesting, right? Normally we tend to think of 4 seasons, right? At least in America, right? This is
Unless you're in Texas, and then there's 2.
right, hot and hotter, right? But there's we tend to think summer, spring, right? Spring, summer, fall, and winter, right? And what happens is that now God's really saying that there are 6 seasons, and those 6 seasons won't stop.
So why did we lose? What was the transition from 6 to 4? Why?
First of all, I don't know if it's all over the world.
Okay. Oh,
Right, like in Israel, there's a rainy season and a non-rainy season, right? Like there's 2 different things, as well as what was the weather before the flood?
don't know. Dry.
So it was springtime the entire year.
Really?
Yeah, there were no seasons. The entire weather was spring. Right? And so what's today's weather? 70 and sunny. Beautiful outside. Right? But that was the entire world was springtime.
Thank you, Rabbi. Yes, so we'll stay tuned for our next episode, and we'll pick it up from there. And listening audience, thank you so much. We'll look forward to talking again next episode.
Thank you, Tom.
You've been listening to Breakneck Through the Bible by Torch Dallas. Visit torchdallas.net for more mind-expanding episodes that will forever change how you read the Bible.